What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is for you. How are you? I am Talib Kweli, the BKMC, the MCEO, and the host of the world's best podcast, The People's Party. As always and as usual, I have my lovely and talented and thoughtful and funny and thought-provoking co-host Jasmin Leigh in the place to be. How you feeling, Jasmin? What's going on with you?
What up? You know, I'm feeling all the colors today. You're really brightening up my life.
Oh, I do have on some colors.
Yes.
You looking very colorful as well yourself.
Thank you. You know, it is a summertime and green is my thing, so.
That's right. Well, it is summer, and summertime a few years ago, I met this gentleman that we have on the show today. Today we have a very special guest. He is an activist and he has become a friend of mine. As an organizer, he helped put together the Ferguson Uprising, Hands Up United, Ferguson October, and was a founding member of Black Lives Matter policy and strategy team back when they was in Ferguson. His efforts have brought global attention to police brutality and to the disproportionate impact it has had on Black and brown communities in our country and all over the world. His work has garnered him speaking invites. He's an incredible speaker. All over the world, from the MLK conference, the MLK breakfast for the 50th anniversary of Selma, the Caston Center's Human Rights Law Conference in Australia, Justice or Else. He's been to Zambia with his organization. He is also a prolific writer, a journalist. His work has appeared in Ebony Magazine, Essence Magazine, and the Black Agenda Report. Shout out to the Black Agenda Report. I really like the work that they do. He serves as the mission director for the International Black Freedom Alliance, a group who has made its mission ending oppression worldwide, and that's a mission I think we should all get behind. That's not an easy task, but as this organization says, great movements start with a dream. This man is continuing the excellent work and the legacy of the Black Panthers with programs like Books and Breakfast. Things that he's involved in have greatly inspired me. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the homie, Tory Russell, in the place to be. What's up, bro?
What's up, Black man?
What's up, Black man? Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for coming to sit with us and do our show, The People's Party. We have a good time at the People's Party, but this is the People's part of the People's Party that we're going to do today. Yes, indeed. So before we start, I want to shout out, I've been watching the January 6th hearings, the insurrection is what they're calling it, this MAGA terrorism situation. And I want to shout out Miss Ruby Freeman and her daughter. I forget her daughter's name. But Ruby Freeman was a poll worker in Georgia who was trolled and attacked by the president and Rudy Giuliani, and the publicist who used to work for Kanye West showed up at her crib and tried to, rattle her. And I bring her up because the phrase protect Black women gets thrown around a lot. And this is a situation where one of our elders was not protected. And I'm bringing up Ruby, Miss Ruby, as she likes to be called, because you and I, we hadn't spoken in a couple of years at that point, right? But we linked back up and started talking after you made a video on your Instagram live. You were live walking around your hood, and you were criticizing Black Lives Matter after Candace Owens showed up at Patrice's house. I responded to your post with a video of my own. And the reason why I responded with a video and I invited you on the show is because, unlike an anonymous troll or a racist or someone who doesn't do any activist work.
And you got a lot of them in your
comment section. I got a lot of them,
yeah.
Right? You're not one of them. As I said in the intro, you contributed your time and effort and even your name to Black Lives Matter. I felt you deserved a response. And I felt that the conversation that you were trying to have on your Instagram is a conversation that we need to have in our community. So I thank you for challenging me. I thank you for challenging activists, and I thank you for the work that you've done just off top.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you for having me on. Appreciate had this conversation. I've been waiting to really get into it.
Yes, indeed.
I don't want no confusion. I just want to clear up some things and really get down to the meat and potatoes.
Absolutely. So I want to start out by saying one of the things I've spoken on is the laziness of the journalists, the laziness of the media to only reach out to certain activists and not always reach out to people who are actually on the ground. How can journalists do better, and where has the media been lacking in covering the movement for Black lives?
I think it's going to be real difficult to kind of undo some of these things. Mm-hmm. You know, in this context of the movement, it's a social media movement. Mm-hmm. And so I guess if you're not tweeting, you're not working and you're not organizing. I think I learned that in Ferguson. It was, for weeks and weeks we would be in the streets organizing, feeding the people, making sure we had rescue plans and masks and wiping people, tear gas out people's face. It wasn't until October that I even started seeing the hashtags and seeing a D. Ray McKesson. I didn't even know. They were saying D. Ray McKesson was organizing everything in Ferguson. I was like, I've never seen them. And so, I feel like what happens in journalism is, you're not really connected. So you go through the easy thing. You see the easy, shiny object and you like it and you have your own personal biases and then you go get that person. I feel like that's how we kind of got to this point where, people taking credit, people being given credit, and then the real conversation around Ferguson, Black Lives Matter, and how the movement started and how we got here never gets told.
Yes, indeed.
Ferguson was a sundown town until the 1960s. And for those who don't know, that means that any Black person in this town that was caught after sundown could be subject to lynching. Growing up in Ferguson in the 90s, how do you feel like that affected you, the policy?
I think it's well known if you live in St. Louis County and in Ferguson, Florissant, Hazelwood, all these really like mini plantations. That's what they are. There's only 20,000 people in Ferguson, like 60-70% Black. We all know that we don't drive down West Florissant. When I met Talib out there, I cracked the joke. I ain't never drove down West Florissant before after 5 or 6 o'clock. You're going to get a ticket. You're going to get a warrant. And you're going to get locked up if you say or do anything out the way. And so it kind of shapes you, as a person, as a young Black person coming up in the hip-hop culture. You look out of bounds. You look like the target for the police. And so for us, we'll drive. Oh, we might see the police. We take your hat off. You cut the music down. If you ain't got the seatbelt on, you put it on. You make sure you show it. Walking around, leaving Ferguson in the 90s, probably like our ancestors, walking around, leaving the plantation. You make sure you got your papers ready to show any white man that you're a free Negro today. So
it's constant anxiety because, Black people as a whole, as soon as you see a cop, even if your license is spick and span, it's like your heart starts to drop. So just thinking like every single day you can't go down a street at 5 or 6 o'clock like that's a lot to carry around as a young person.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of probably having 1 million heart attacks in your lifetime. You tense up. You get anxiety. You look. All you doing is shaking and looking, and you trying to figure out like how I get here, how I get out, where I can make a left turn. All right, this parking lot. And if you live like that every day, then it's gonna have an effect on your quality of life.
Right.
Yeah, and that's such a drastic change. Ferguson is a prime example of, in that time in the 1960s, it was 99% white. And then by the time you were growing up, it's 60-70% Black.
Right.
And now I think it's closer to, I was looking it up recently, it's closer to like 55. So it's more even, but it's still majority Black. Eric Holder was in power at the time. And he led an investigation that found out, shocker, police in Ferguson are racist. This is what they spent a lot of money. I'm not sure how much they spent, but what I read, the town is now being charged $300,000 a year for that Eric Holder investigation that found out police are racist. Has anything changed for the better since that story? And should people have to pay more for racial equality and better policing?
I think the purpose of all protests is to make racism or white supremacy expensive. And so, we fought hard at the beginning for a consent decree before the DOJ to come in and create these parameters and new standards. But what we saw really was smoke and mirrors. I remember sitting down with the DOJ and talking to them and, having Holder on the calls, Attorney General Holder. And I just remember asking like the blunt question, like, okay, the consent decree, what does that do? It's like, well, we hold the police accountable. I say, okay, how? It's like, we sue the police and take the money away. I'm like, okay. And then what about the police and the police chief and the dispatcher who do this? And they was like, yeah, we set these standards. I'm like, but if they violate, then what? And they was like, we sue. And I was like, we just sue? Like nobody go to jail? So they violate my rights. They get a slap on the wrist and you sue a city where it's majority Black and we pay the taxes.
Exactly.
And the Black people pay the taxes, yeah.
But if I assault the officer or do something to the police officer, I'm going to jail. And for me, and I think a lot of activists from Ferguson to now, from Baltimore and Minneapolis, because, consent decree is a new cool thing to hold them accountable. But you find out, it's like a kid finding out that Superman is fake.
Yeah, and I remember when that decision was made, and then Holder left his position right after that. But I remember it was seen as just such a symbolic victory. Everybody was like, yeah, see, we've been telling y'all. But now, when you think about it years later, was it a victory at all?
Right, you have black people paying for racist white people's, make it make sense.
Yeah, and then, for me, after, it came out and Obama made the statement and Holder made the statement about the Ferguson Commission and all of this and 21st century policing, I was really shocked because, Attorney General Holder, he when he was appointed, his acceptance speech was talking about that we are a nation of cowards, that we must address this racism that's inherently, intrinsically in our system. And when this black man had the opportunity to do that, he folded like a lawn chair. So it's like, I seen it in my lifetime where I vote black, I get Obama, I get a black president, attorney general, DOJ, it got Valerie Jarrett in the White House, and all these black people stacked. And then locally, you got nothing but Democrats, so-called black people's political party or friend, and nobody comes to save us. And so, this is probably why black people stop voting or don't vote at all in the first place. We never seen change come from.
Yeah, you're right. Now, we are so desensitized to violence against black bodies from the state. And in the social media and camera phone era, we not only are desensitized to hearing about it and knowing about it and feeling and living it, but now we see it over and over and over again. And there's debate on how much of that we should see. I don't want to get into that right now, but I want to make sure that we speak efficiently and effectively about Mike Brown and what he went through, because I think what actually happened to him, we're so desensitized, it gets lost. And so as somebody who was in Ferguson that night, can you walk us through the night Mike Brown was murdered and left for hours in the street, and then take us through how you mobilized that night and then the rest of the year?
Yeah. August 9th, 2014, about 11 o'clock. I'm a jock, or former jock. I don't play no more. So, I can probably be some of y'all in here. But,
okay.
And some of y'all out there, too, if you want to smoke.
Gosh.
Came from football practice. Like everybody else, take my showers. It's summertime in the Midwest, so up north in the South. So it's like really hot. It's like 90-something degrees. Take my shower, chill out. Swiping, going up on Twitter, and I seen this big 6'4", 285-pound kid. And as a coach, I'm like, is this one of mine that I just left practice? So I get the call, and the coach is like, yo, is this, and it's like, no, this is a kid in Ferguson. So I'm like, might go to Normandy, might go to one of the other schools. So I'm calling the coaches, and then I see this sign where his stepfather said, Ferguson PD just killed my unarmed son. And then the news flash, and it's live already. And they had the mother, Miss Leslie saying, and this what made me move, because I spend time arguing, debating people. We do that on Twitter. And she said, you know how hard it is to get a young black boy to graduate high school in St. Louis, Missouri? You know how hard it is to wake him up. The boy just graduated. He went through summer school to even graduate. He just graduated like 8 days before the day he got killed. She said, I don't know. Somebody got an answer for that. So I don't know. I'm like everybody else. I'm not no trained activist. I've been to protests and marches. And I just went out to Ferguson. It was thick. You couldn't even get down there. And by the time we got down there, the body was still laying, though. So, we went through the whole thing. EMS worker. It was a black surgeon who lived out there. He wanted to try to check on him. No police assistant. Then they put the little tarp on him. Then they put this white sheet on top of it. It was just blood soaked. And I'm talking about this, we younger, so I've never seen a lynching. But it felt like a lynching to everybody in that community. You could see the blood. Like even to this day, you go out there, they had to pave over the pavement. It was so bloody. So I had to, try to figure something out. And I didn't know what to do. I tried to do what the history book do. But I knew that Black Mama said one thing. Somebody got an answer for that. So we went to the Ferguson Police Department, and, It started with 5 people, then 10 people, and then the mothers of other people who was killed by the police came, and I mean, that was the start of, you know, a movement for us.
Yeah. Darren Wilson, the officer who shot Mike Brown, there were hints that he was connected to the KKK, I think by Anonymous had put out some information. There was also a planned fundraiser for him by the Missouri KKK at one point. Can you break down, for people who may not know, the history of the KKK and policing and being overseers, particularly how it relates to Missouri?
I think when we just got done with Juneteenth, and so we all know Juneteenth, I guess historically on paper, marks the end of slavery, or when they told the slaves. And so, you know, as the elders tell me, that Missouri is one of the last states to free the slaves, to the point where they had to come to the plantation and tell them they was free, and they didn't even know what the concept of free was. And so they walked the slaves off of the plantation and said they can go do whatever they want, but they walked right back because they heard the shotguns. And so that's the essence of what we have today, which is just slave catchers, slave patrols, people who just patrol and govern black bodies and black movement. And so that is the history of Missouri. We didn't really have too much of a civil rights movement. Dr. King came. He came. They said there was a lot of things going on in St. Louis, and he wanted to come and try to bring the movement up north a little bit. You know, he couldn't get to Chicago. He's going to try St. Louis. And they stopped him on the tarmac, and the preacher said, "Don't come here. You're going to cause too much trouble." And so that's the history of St. Louis. Rebellions are ready to go, and someone always quells them from the inside, and the police is always right there. And so we had a lot of Rodney King moments. We had a lot of Mike Browns and Tamir Rice moments. But Ferguson became different because the people was so tired of getting beat up by the police, they didn't give a damn no more. And so it became the people versus the police. And so the history of it is, a slave rebellion just happened in 2014 with Wi-Fi.
I think that's what made Ferguson so important and made it ground zero, is because, and even with you, Tory, I mean, you said just now I wasn't a trained activist. I remember when I first met you, that's one of the first things you said to me. You was like, "Man, I'm just out here working and hustling. Yeah. Like this activist work is not what I do, but now I'm seeing I want to dedicate my life to this." And I think a lot of people made that choice in Ferguson. This was a working class black community that just decided enough was enough.
And I think, it's not just Ferguson, it's the little small towns. People was coming because, we make this distinction like it was just Ferguson. I feel like that's strategic by the government and the media trying to cultivate this narrative that it's this little bitty town, don't look around to the other places. But when you see the report, it's a million Fergusons.
That's right.
It's Ferguson everywhere. It's a Ferguson in Ohio. It's a Ferguson up in, Saratoga Springs, upstate New York. Yeah, that's a fact.
Cincinnati. Just every town could name somebody that.
And so if we could kind of move and mobilize those things, we'll be better off. And so what happened was everybody who ever felt the feeling of their sundown town came to Ferguson.
Right.
And they came for retribution. They came to file their grievance, right? They came to memorialize Mike Brown and his family and all the Mike Browns who was killed in their life. And Ferguson just so happened to be the epicenter in the spot that it happened.
Yeah. So for me, everybody knows I was on Twitter back then. But
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, they don't let me on Twitter anymore, but they used to. I was tweeting a lot at that time. Now, I'm also known to participate in activist work and utilize my platform and my voice for activist work, but I was an activist rapper until Ferguson. I didn't consider myself an activist. Someone would be like, "You an activist?" I'm like, no. Malcolm X grassroots movement. Those are the activists, or refuse and resist. I'm a rapper. I would make a very clear distinction. But I did an album called Prisoner of Conscience. And I was like, I can't call my album this if I'm not doing more work. Prisoner of Conscience can't just be an album with a barcode on it. And so I went to meet with Harry Belafonte and Gina Belafonte and them. And they plugged me in with Phil Agnew and Dream Defenders. And when I got down to Tallahassee, that's when I met people from Black Lives Matter. And there's people that I saw in Tallahassee rocking with Dream Defenders that when I got to Ferguson, I saw those same people in the street. So now I'm excited because I'm like, oh, these young people got a movement. I'm trying to tap in. I'm trying to let them lead me. J. Cole had called me from Ferguson, and he was like, I need to plug in with the people, and you seem like you would know. And I didn't know. Not only did I not know at that time, but I wasn't there. And I'm like, if J. Cole, who is picking up the mantle from the work I did is there, I could be there. And so I went. And I was like, I gotta go. If I don't want to be by myself. So I brought Jessica Care-Moore with me and Rosa Clemente and my man Seth Bird. And the night I got there, the first people I was introduced to was you and Tefpo. And y'all made sure we were good, and y'all introduced me to some other people. And I met Kayla Reed that night, and we were out there on Canfield and Florissant. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't planning to be there for as long as I was there. I was like, I'm gonna go for a couple of days. I'm gonna shake some hands. I'm gonna kiss some babies. I'm gonna be the rapper.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what the rappers do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up.
Get the photos.
Yeah. And use my platform to showcase the actual activists. Because again, I'm like, I'm not the activist,
but I'm
gonna show you.
I'm gonna lead you. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Sundown Town. Back to that Sundown Town. When the sun went down, and CNN and Fox News and everybody cameras left, it was a different place. And now we're being attacked by the cops. And now the police are actively inciting violence, is what I saw with my own two eyes. I saw the cops do things and act in ways that were guaranteed to cause problems. You know, I ended up getting chased and there was some tear gas, and I ended up getting laid down on the floor by some police, and I think you got arrested that night.
Man, look, to this day, that's like the craziest day ever. Like, it's just amazing, period, right? So, you know, I get the call, Phil Agnew, Dream Defenders. He like, yo, what's up? I just met him. So he's like, yo, we been building for a couple of days. He just left the crib. You know, we went to a little chicken spot. And we like, yo, Talib Kweli finna pull up. I'm like, what? He like, Talib. I'm like, right. I made it. You know, 'cause first of all, I'm in the room with Phil and the Dream Defenders and Harry Belafonte calling. I'm in the, you know, this the movement Avengers room at this point, right? We all come together. They're like, Talib Kweli coming and Rosa Clemente coming. I'm like, oh. So, you know, he's like, oh, so we do. And he ended up taking us to MSNBC. So, you know, they get to put me on, me and Phil doing it, and they asked me, it's like, no, that's not what happened. So I'm, you know, refuting what's the police statement. And we leave, and at the end of the gate, the police is standing there with cameras watching the interview. So I'm like, oh, this real, right? But, it, you know, okay. I walk out and then see Talib, I see, oh, hey, you know. So we take the Mike Brown walk.
Yeah.
So, you know, they'd be like, what happened? So I'm like, I took them to the Ferguson market. You know, people thought it was the Quick Trip. That's why it burned down. Everybody thought it was the Quick Trip. But there's only two places you can go to buy anything to eat, and that's the Quick Trip and the market. So we leave in the market. I'm showing them, you know, he crossing the street. He has sandals on. And like you said, when that sun got all the way down, they moved in.
Yep.
And I'll never forget this. We walk in it, and they just pull out anything. They was like, guns out. Everybody got to moving. We running around, and I'll never forget. When they got me, it's like 4 or 5 people on me. They was like, got gray shirt, gray shirts recovered.
So they were looking for you.
So I'm looking for Talib. He, I'm like, okay, he used to play football or something. He got low.
No
and
sports.
Took off. Right, but he got low, you know, but that's, you just black.
Right.
Like, you ain't even got to be that's the sport of young black boys. Get away from the police. So I'm just like, man, I'll get locked up. I'm like, man, so I'm going to the car and sitting in there, but I'm like, damn, where Talib at? Like, where Phil? Everybody with me. And it's just a whole bunch of people, man. It's probably like 100 people got arrested that night, man. And when we got out, I was so stunned to see you because, like I said, I didn't even know what was going on. Next thing I know, they was like, man, Tory, you got to look at this. You know, I went to the barber shop and Saul was like, look at this, man. Your boy, Talib, you was with. I was like, all right. And you going off on Don Lemon.
Yeah. See, now it's crazy. Don Lemon. So it's crazy that, first of all, shout out to Don Lemon. He actually came on the show. Did you know that?
Okay.
He came on the
60
show.
more minutes.
In the Zoom era. Okay. And we chopped it up.
Okay.
We talked about that night.
Yeah.
He said his piece and I said my piece. And we all saw his transition after that. After he smelled the weed, Remember the night?
And he hit it a little bit. We ain't gonna, you know.
He did not inhale.
But Don, I was supposed to do an interview with Anderson Cooper. All of them were in town. And Anderson Cooper was busy. And so they're like, you want to do it with Don Lemon? And all I knew about him, I knew he had did a report about people were mad at him because he had dabbled in respectability politics. He did like a pull your pants up type report. And so I was like, okay, but here's a black man. Here's a gay man. So he's part of marginalized communities. So I'm excited to have the conversation with him. But I hadn't done any other press because I was like, I'm not here as a rapper. I'm here with the people. But I'm like, I can't turn down CNN.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? Don Lemon, I got to do this.
I got it. Yeah.
And when I did it, I just was surprised. To his credit, he didn't know who I was because he was thrown into a situation that he didn't know. He was covering for somebody else.
Anderson Cooper, they, you know.
Yeah. And so he was playing the role of a company man. And because, like what I just said, I saw what I saw with my eyes was different than how CNN had reported it. And so when I started to say that, well, CNN reported it wrong, he decided at that moment to represent the company because he felt the way. He felt proud of the work he was doing. He felt like, I'm here with the people. I'm here. CNN is holding, we're the opposite of Fox News, so we're more with the people. So I think that's where we started arguing because he decided to defend CNN. And I'm very sensitive to the black people feeling like the Democrats have sold them out. Black people feeling like, oh, we supposed to trust CNN, but we really don't because they really telling the police story. And so that's really, is interesting that you say about the MSNBC thing because that's where I was at with it. I'm like, y'all are telling the police narrative. And that's not what I saw.
Everybody, but you know, back then, everybody got it wrong. Fox News definitely, they was intentionally getting it wrong.
They didn't want to get it right.
They wrong was right.
Right.
But CNN, I would think, would kind of get it more right. They failed. You know, MSNBC did a better job, you know, Joanne Reed and other people like that, but they failed. I mean, BET failed. A lot of people failed. Mark Lamont Hill came, he failed trying to cover this story from this weird, like you said, company kind of angle. But you black, though.
Right.
You know, so like, they, you know, everybody sent out their black reporter, black journal. You know, we crack a joke that we probably got Tremaine Lee, Joanne Reed, everybody a pay raise back then because you had to bring somebody black
to talk
to
about
even
it.
back. Take your camera off your thing because you lying anyway. So like I felt that. So when you had that interview and I saw it later, I'm on that type of time.
Right.
So when I finally got my interview with Don Lemon, I'm like, you finna get this work.
Right.
And he gave me, and I'm thinking, you know, same thing. He don't really know who I am. He probably think I'm just some of these random protesters. Let's ask him a question. And he asked the slow pitch. But little did he know, it's hip hop. We do the questions in the back. We had the cipher. What you say if they say this. So we would just trade.
Training.
We training each other. So whoever get the chance to answer the question,
They ready.
we got a punchline for you. So he's like, what, you know, it's out there in Ferguson, are you asking for calm? Are you asking the people to stay calm? I said, I am. I'm asking police to stay calm. I'm asking the police not to tear gas, beat us. And he was you can just see like in his head, like, yeah, you messed up.
Right.
Yeah, I ain't no, you know, I'm not no regular black person.
Right.
I'm not no regular activist. You can't set me up. And I felt like that was the difference in Ferguson, that we was, even though we, you know, hip hop, hat to the back, you know, somebody might have gold teeth, you know, Shanquisha gonna come out with the Hooper
But you was
ring.
educated.
Right, but we educated, we know this thing, we live this thing every day. And I felt like they couldn't handle that. And so they had to shift to something a little bit safer, something a little bit more edible, something that they could understand and they can get to it. But the people really who left out when we didn't have those real truth tellers telling the truth out loud.
So amazing how black people, when they're bilingual, how powerful we are when we can speak to our people and speak to y'all's.
Like, the code switching,
At the same time,
Right.
too. Yeah.
Speaking of Martin Luther King, you've protested in front of businesses, shut down highways, disrupted traffic on holidays, and these are all the same tactics that MLK has used. Can you explain how this type of civil disobedience is so important?
People, it may rub people the wrong way. You know, when you know, I get it. You know, you sit on that highway. I done been there. I'm ready to go home. That traffic hit. And you ready to go home, and then you look down, and it's, you know, a couple hundred people standing on the highway. I know you inconvenience, but I want to remind people, and since it's me, so I got to remind Bernice King too, because when she came to Ferguson, she criticized us for not doing it her father way, and I had to remind her that you ain't been doing it your father way, and if you actually studied your father, you would understand what we literally doing, and what we doing is what Dr. King said is sometimes in society there are things that supersede laws and regulations of steady flow of society. And so we all know what these things are, but we don't recognize them until they are. Until they're 100% present. And that presence is, I'm country, so it's an ambulance. When the ambulance comes, it don't care about a stop sign, it don't care about a stoplight, it don't matter if you got a pharmacy to go to, it doesn't matter about anything. It's an emergency going on. And everything and everybody must stop and concede to the real emergency in society. And so when it's a epidemic, right? Before this pandemic, Black people was living in the pandemic. And so when this pandemic is happening, we have to shut down everything because it's not okay to just go to the grocery store or go to work and fund, white supremacy or go to the ball game. We had to do something about it. So I don't have a sorry for anybody. I wish you would have got out the car and joined the movement.
Right.
And maybe all these things we see in society went over with and we have a solution and justice for everybody.
Yeah, the ambulance metaphor, I never heard that one, but that's a brilliant metaphor. That's the right way, I think, to frame the discussion. You and Tef Poe directly inspired the fundraiser I did. Now, I went to Ferguson that a first initial time, and then I came back for the Ferguson October. And I felt indebted to that community. I felt a part of that community. And so I wanted to do something. You and Tef happened to be in New York. Y'all came over to the crib.
We pulled up.
And I asked y'all, I said, how can I help? How can I use my platform to help? And y'all were like, look, there's all this money coming in. We're going to talk about money in a second. But this is where our conversation with money into the movement starts at. Y'all said, there's all this money coming in, but it's not getting to the people on the ground. All this money coming into all these organizations, but we are going into our own pockets to get the milk and the Maalox to put in people's eyes. We are the ones paying for hotel rooms for people to, we're paying for people bail. This money ain't getting to the people on the ground. So we need a system in where the money could get directly to us. And I'm like, okay, I could raise a few thousand with GoFundMe.
Right.
But then one of these white supremacist websites, a very popular one, I don't even know which one it was, did a story criticizing me for doing this fundraiser, and it backfired on them. And now all this money came in.
Right.
And my goal was $10,000. We greatly exceeded that goal. We made about $115,000 came in. It's not 90 million, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than
folk. That's we can fry a lot of fish with that.
That's right. And so the first thing that happened was I got scared. And I don't scare easily. I'm not somebody, I'm Nina Simone, I'm no fear. But I'm like, yo, they're gonna try to Wyclef me out here. You know what I'm saying? Because you see how they did here? I'm like, yo, you try to raise some money, and if you don't have the knowledge and experience or the infrastructure, I had no infrastructure. So I'm like, I got 100,000. I'm like, I'm going to get accused of stealing some of this money. That's going to happen. But let me stave off as much of it as I can. Let me cross my T's and dot my I's, get all my receipts in order, and let me form a coalition. So initially, the first people in the coalition where it was you and Tef Poe and Philip Agnew, and then we brought in Patrice from Black Lives Matter. And you and Tef sort of left that didn't leave, but didn't really involve yourself in the minutia of it. You were like, y'all sort of suggested, here's who you need to rock with. And then y'all went and started doing books and breakfast and Hands Up United, and that became what it was. But tell me from your perspective, it started as a bail fund to get political prisoners like Josh Williams out. But even that became sticky because then people were like, well, if we're just investing into the bail system, that's just the money going to the police. So from
it's easy to say that when you ain't in that cage.
That's true. So from your perspective, tell me what was going on in your mind around that time.
I seen about 5 racks in there, and I was like, okay, 5. And then got about 8, 9. I was like, okay. And we're almost to 10. And then it stalled, right? And I'm like, okay, we can wait on it. And he was like, and then we had the conversation. He was like, you want me to try to pull it out or try to? I was like, I don't know. And then we start protesting again. And I blinked, and it was at 60, 70, 80, 90. It's 100. And sure enough, they don't care when it's 5 or 10,000.
No.
60, 100. Oh my God! So not only did you have the white supremacists trying to, take the fundraiser down, but you had other activists feeling like we was gonna run off with the bag. The savvy of us is I can get to it. I can talk to it. You put me in a room full of funders, I'm gonna come out with it. They don't have that. I remember them conversations like, what groups? I'm naming groups. You like, they don't even have a Twitter handle or Instagram.
Right, because we were trying to figure out who we need to give the money to.
And I'm like, they don't really work like that. When you working, it's hard to tweet.
Right.
Like, no, you can tweet. I'm like, yeah, but old girl tweeting and the homie trying to help me. And so I'm not like that. So I just like, look, man, I know people personally that was locked up, like Derek, the Gardner brother, you never knew, right? And these people locked up, they already had probation and parole. They already had warrants. Then I knew Josh was locked up. So I was like, the first part, we got to just get the people in the cage. And we can talk about the bail system later on.
Right.
Until you got to go to the commissary 10, and then you talking about something different. You trying to make a phone call to your mom and you ain't got no money on it. You talking something different. And then I wanted to say, these other groups, let's give them a shot.
Yeah.
Let's give some people who you don't know, might not see, might be afraid to talk to the camera. Let's get them the resources and let's fund some of these other programs and services that I know is needed in the community. It don't matter if we agree or not. That's never about if we agree politically or not. You are doing something for the community. You chose to do it. Let's give, the true soldiers and the Ruba and them the money, right? Let's give Tribe X the money.
And we gave a large chunk of the money went to MORE, which went to Missouri Organization for Reform and Empowerment.
Yeah.
And they were focused on the bail. Yeah. That's where most of it went. But the rest of it went to these smaller organizations that didn't have huge profiles.
And then they have no what? Infrastructure. No nothing. Right. They just was people in the community who care. And so if we can give them the resources, we can figure it out. And what we figured out is art collectives start growing up. Guerrilla gardening start happening all over the community. They seen our program. It's competition. That's fine. Who can do the most breakfast programs and who can feed them? That's a good competition. Who can feed the most kids and give out the most books? So we gave those things out, and all it did was grow the movement and all over the city, so everybody was taken care of. Yeah. If those things could have been sustained, I think it would have been good. But for some people in our position, we had the opportunity at that time. That was the bag for us.
Right.
Because we didn't have that infrastructure either, but we would rather share it and give it out to the people to kind of make a real movement.
Right.
The main thing that I get from that is that Black people just do not trust other Black people because they did not trust that you guys are going to do what was right with the money because of the systemic racism that tells you, Black people are so bad, Black people are burglars. Like, we need programs, too, that are going to be able to take these youths and reprogram that so they can start believing in their Black sisters and brothers and not trying to question every single movement when we don't do it to other people.
Right. And I agree with that, but I got to, just to a certain extent, add on because I have my own ego. You know what I'm saying? I feel a way about myself. I do. We all have, you know what I'm saying? And some of the pushback I get from people in the community, I'm like, I'm Talib Kweli. I made Black Star. I made, it's me, baby. It's me.
It's me, baby. You know what I'm saying? You forgot about me.
You forgot about me. But at the same time, I think it's very healthy to demand accountability.
Right. Yes, that's
from
true.
People who are raising money and people who are purporting to do this type of act. Like, I welcome the mistrust. But then let's put the facts on the table. Like, please question me. Allow me the chance to make my case. Like, I welcome that. I think we need that.
Yeah. And when you're in the public, you can't duck that.
Yeah.
I can't be, what I look like. I'm on CNN talking, I'm speaking for Black people. I'm going to the White House on the behalf of Black people. And then you ask a question, what happened to the money you and Talib? I'm going to answer that right there. And if you come sideways on Twitter, I'm gonna set you on fire on my timeline. I don't know what to tell you. You should have. You came out of pocket. But I'm gonna answer in public. It's not no side conversation. But I feel like that's how we all should be. Yeah. If we can't answer the things in public, we can't ask for things in public.
I agree, and I think both things are true.
Now, this is a good segue because this leads into talking about Darren Seals and the legacy of Darren Seals and my interactions with him.
Right.
Now, Darren Seals is, well, you know what? You're from Ferguson, so I'm gonna tell people who are watching the show who Darren Seals is and what he represents to the movement.
King Darren Seals.
King D Seals.
King D Seals. D-Boy. Street dude. You know, for me, somebody who could have been Malcolm X if he was allowed to live that long. He gave a speech probably that second week, maybe that first week in Ferguson, when they had the stage and all of that. He gave a speech, you know, one of them, you know, let him speak. And he ended up killing the whole thing. He was saying, you know, we come from the AC era after crack. You know, we'd have forgotten about. You know, we the people who our daddies got locked up or somewhere in the streets, and our mama had to work too much to raise us. But whatever you say about us is because we your children. And it was a reminder of like, it was like watching Malcolm go from Red to Malcolm X in real time. Street dude come in with the flashy jewelry, you know, had a knot on him. And seeing the consciousness raise in real time because a real movement is going. That brother, man, he did something I'll never forget. He took people that you would never think to be in the movement and brought them into the movement en masse. We would have these like debates and arguments. That's, you know, he liked
to argue.
He liked to argue.
Yeah.
Right, we would have these. We would sit in the Ferguson Burger Boy and argue. We'd come to the Hands Up office and argue. Hell, we'd be arguing right in protest lines sometime. And so, man, we had this one day and we were just talking about like building. He was like, man, I just want to get a whole bunch of black people together. And we started these small little meetings in this bottom of this bar, man. And one day he's like, man, I'm finna do something big. And you know, he called the people out on the radio. He talked so bad about the radio, not supporting the movement, not talking to them. He's like, how you got a whole movement right here in the hip-hop radio station, ain't talking about the movement. Right. To the point they actually just gave him like free pub for his stuff, for like his event. And 300 black people showed up in the middle of the summer for a meeting outside. And they came week in and week in and week, and he was building that, man. And one day, you know, coming back from Detroit, trying to build the movement, got the call, and they was like, man, D Seals dead. And, man, they just killed him one day, man. It was just a bad, you know, they gonna say it's black on black crime, you know, but he was shot in the head, tied up, driven about 4 or 5 miles from where he was shot, and then they set his car on fire, his Jeep, because he worked at the GM. And that's another thing, he supported his whole family with that, and, man, it was like the saddest day. It was like, you know, like kind of like losing your vocal leader. And even though I'm a leader, I still looked at him as my leader.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was that kind of powerful. He just had that, gab.
Now, he wasn't the only Ferguson activist that was found dead, right? Bassem. And it was
Massery.
Right. There was somebody else.
He came to your show.
He did.
And he just walked through, you know, it'd be like, and they was like, oh, it's Bass. And he just walked through, well, like, what's up? And I was just like, pass him, man.
Yeah, rest in peace to both of them.
Peace,
now, Darren Seals, again, liked to argue. And he was very critical of people coming in from the coast and descending upon Ferguson and making that part of your name. Like, again, the Black Lives Matter hashtag was popping off. And D-Ray McKesson was popping off, and Netta was popping off, and Sean King popping off with the tweets. And here I come, I'm the rapper, right?
And he did rap too.
And he rapped. And so he had gotten at me just on some like, my first interaction with him ever was, you a sellout. It was my first interaction with him ever. I didn't know who he was at all.
That's how he coming, early.
Yeah, any of this, you telling me I'm not, and so you know me of Twitter, I'm just like, I'm going to respond with the same energy that I receive.
That's a fact.
And I'm like, whatever, nigga, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Who the fuck is, you know what I'm saying? That was my energy.
Who the fuck is this nigga? Right.
Yeah. He's like, all right, when you come to town, I'm going to see you. And I'm like, pull up. Because I felt like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, if we going to have a conversation, I felt ready for anything. And Ferguson, October, I was at that whatever venue that was. I stepped outside to have a smoke. And here come Darren Seals, tapped me on my shoulder.
Yeah.
What's up? It's Darren Seals.
Right.
From Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Normally I don't meet people from Twitter in real life.
This King D Seals, what's up?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I'm a good talker, and I didn't have no real beef with him, so we was able to, in that moment, diffuse that whatever issue was and talk it out. And he liked the fact that he could look me in my eye.
Right.
And he liked the fact that, and I liked the fact that he stepped to me like that. Because you're not just woofing on Twitter, you gonna get behind with what you say. But he was very critical of D-Ray. And D-Ray became the face of Black Lives Matter for better or for worse. And he was very critical of Black Lives Matter. He did not like Black Lives Matter at all. And I was very supportive of Black Lives Matter. And so even though in person, we had a great exchange, we kept talking on Twitter, and he got to the point where he was like, well, you know what? I'm going to fuck Kweli up. Right. And so the weeks up until his passing, he was just threatening me on Twitter.
Right.
I wasn't the only, I mean, he did hit D-Ray, right?
Yeah, he slapped him.
He slapped him. Yeah. So when he's saying he going to do these things, I'm like, this is a man who might actually try to do this.
he going to do that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
he said he going to do that to you.
I remember I came back to Ferguson again for a concert. I think my concert was after he had passed away. But I remember having conversations. I didn't have a conversation with you, but I remember having a conversation with Tef Poe and certain other people about when I come, I got to sit with Darren because all this violent talk and this and that.
I can't have it.
Right. And then he ended up murdered. And it was crazy for me because what I started getting was people like, oh, Talib set Darren Seals up. Now, I didn't get that from no real people. That was white supremacists. That wasn't people in the movement saying that. Darren Seals was weaponized by racists, in my opinion, against people like me. And for better or for worse, people like sisters who started Black Lives Matter. And so the reason why I wanted to bring him up on this show is because, yeah, I felt the way about being threatened by him. And I felt like that was unfair. And I felt like he read me wrong and had me wrong. But also I knew what his legacy was and what he represented. And this, I've never spoken on this. This is on this show. You've never seen me, I talk about everything on Twitter and Instagram. You've never seen me talk about this. But I felt like I had to talk about it on People's Party with a resident from his city. And
then on the back end, right, having them conversations with D Seals, you know, like, man, what's up with your boy? He ain't responding. So I'm like, yo, like you want his number? It's like, is this like you trying to? And he's like, no, man, I feel like he's supporting the wrong thing. So once I thought, you know, first I'm like, he's like, man, I'm gonna slap him. I'm like, this ain't D-Ray, so.
Right.
I'll watch it, you know, like it's gonna be a fair one. I'm here for it, right? Cause then I called you, he's like, yeah, and then I'm like, oh, both of these, they ready to go. So
Talib got his kicking foot ready.
Right, so I'm like, all right, well, I'll see y'all in 3 weeks when the show, I'll be at the ready room, you know.
Right.
So I'm like, but he was a prophet. I'm not gonna hold you. You know, I feel like the ancestors knew they was gonna take him, so they had to, you know, leave some breadcrumbs and kind of tell you what was going on. And, you know, he read the room. He read exploitation. He read when people were gaslighting people, talking about, oh, black women need, you know, you talking about you. And so he told you about the movement, and he had the foresight, even before me, to say, yo, these people, you know, these what he called weirdos coming. These weirdos coming in, they moving weird. They not gonna be in community with us. He's like, I bet you. And you can go watch his lives and go to YouTube now. He says it. He said, these people gonna pop up, get your money, pop out, and be gone. You not gonna hear or see from them again. He's like, you can go to their cities right now. You probably not gonna see them. So, you know, we can disagree, but at this point, he read it. He called it down, and now we dealing with the ramifications of that today in the movement.
Can you walk us through the forming of the International Black Freedom Alliance, and what are your goals and accomplishments?
The IBFA, the International Black Freedom Alliance, right? That's my pitch right here.
Okay.
Which camera is it? Right here.
Make sure you smile. There you go. He ready.
Lick the lips. This Tally and Twine. It's a black-owned watch company. So, you know, everything black, shirt black, everything. So, the International Black Freedom Alliance is a collective of black people, grassroots people who believe that black people are smart enough, intelligent enough, resilient enough, resourceful enough, you know, just strong enough to free ourselves with or without allies. And so we're very clear about this. If white, brown, Jewish, anybody come, we'll accept some of that and some help. But ultimately, if nobody come, we believe that black people can save black people and get to freedom. And we believe that if black people organize around environmental justice, police brutality, and these worldwide global issues, it will end oppression for everyone around the world. And so we're an all-black organization. We accept all people to support. And we do the same things that we did in Ferguson, but we just do those things with black people, and not just in the United States or Canada or Caribbean. We do them with black people all over the world. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That's a good mission. This organization is also identified as a Pan-African organization. Sure. And I come from Pan-Africanism background, and I feel like for Black people all over the world, Pan-Africanism has given us the most when it comes to social justice. There is nativist movements in this country.
Okay.
People who are anti-Pan-African. What are you laughing about?
Because you know where we going. Because once you say, it's like Candyman. Once you say their name,
see, I'm not gonna say they. See, no, I didn't say their name. I didn't say their name. I said nativist movements because the people who
we're gonna be fighting in the comment
about.
section for about 3-4 weeks.
Hey, I got you,
Listen,
bro.
this is why I'm happy Talib's off of Twitter.
I got you. We're not saying their name because the organization who I'm talking about,
right.
it ain't just them.
It ain't just them.
They the forefront of it. There's 3,000 of them.
And I appreciate them.
Yeah, it ain't just them. But how do you feel? Do you feel like their anti-African thing, their anti-immigrant thing, can be harmful to the movement?
100%. But Neely Fuller Jr. would say, if you don't understand what white supremacy is, how it functions, and how it operates, then everything in life will confuse you. And so, they just like anybody else. They Black people. What the white people would say, or the academics would say, they're xenophobic. Big Mama would say they ain't got no damn sense because they fighting their brothers and sisters and cousins. And so it's sad to see them, but what I can say in our organization is that we have members, a part of, they believes in what they believe in.
Okay.
Because just because you believe that Black people here or where you at should be free doesn't mean that you don't believe in someone else's freedom.
That's right. I'm with that.
And so once we had these conversations, and it gets thick because you believe that they are coming over here to do something intentionally to you, but they are trying to escape what your government and that flag that you put in your Twitter bio, your Instagram bio, has done to their so-called sovereign nation state. And so they only here because your government, the people you saying is okay, or the country you trying to reform, would never try to go back and deal with what they did, what the Clintons did in Haiti, or what Reagan did in Honduras and Colombia. So once you understand how these so-called new immigrants or new Black people get here, you'll have a different worldview. But if you understood how this thing comes together, then you'll understand a Pan-African approach, because the white supremacists are global.
Yeah.
They play global economics, global geopolitics, and you want to play small ball.
Yeah.
With somebody who can wipe you off the face of a map with a button somewhere, but you're not even gonna see it. So you have to have a global approach to it. But
that's fair.
We can debate it out or not.
That's a
I'm
fair
not talking about me and you. I'm talking about in the comments whenever this drops.
Oh yeah.
No,
because I know that the IBFA is, when I saw that it's identified as Pan-African, I'm like, well, I gotta ask about this.
Yeah, and we don't make it nobody. And so those people who don't feel like they gotta help, then they just do national work or local work. Some people just only want to work on their city. So there are people who show up for the work however they want to show up. But if you're not doing that connected to everyone else, it's not a movement.
That's right.
If you're doing it on your own, you just playing one-on-one at this point.
Yeah. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about BLM, starting with your video that you made with Michael Brown Sr. But I want to quote you, a quote that I liked that you said. "We have been forced to watch the movement turn away from the masses of Black people activated by Mike's death and become mainly focused on lucrative mainstream acceptance from white media and white funders. With pure frustration, we saw our chance of empowerment and perseverance turn to cheap merch for rappers, and entertainers who only wear it on their bodies but not in their hearts." Now, you were someone who has criticism for Black Lives Matter, and the way in which you frame your criticism, you believe in calling them in instead of calling them out. You've stressed that your criticism is a political and strategic critique and not a personal one. You know Patrisse Cullors. You work with her at Ferguson. You were working with Black Lives Matter. Can you lay out your criticism as it stands right now at Black Lives Matter and discuss the content of the video that you made with Mike Brown Sr.?
So I'm gonna set the preface it the same way when me and Patrisse talk. Patrisse, this ain't personal. This the same homie you saw in D.C. He was like, yo, who got the good weed and the Henny? And I sent my mans and he came back with it. I'm the same dude in Ferguson. When we went to the Walmart and we were standing on them counters, I'm the same person. So I just wanted to be clear, it's not personal, but we public people. And so as public people in this political sphere, everything is political. And so What I did was what I've always done in Ferguson. I'm going to take the hit. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to take my licks in public, and I'm going to do what the masses or what my people asked for. And what my people asked for in Ferguson was someone need to readdress them. And since I was one of the people who's helped start the movement, sat in the room with them, cultivate the policy and the strategy and all this framework, then I should be the person that's saying it. But out of fear of, getting the backlash, I get being blackballed, can't go to foundations, can't go to philanthropist group. And this, before the video, this 4 or 5 years of this. Once I walked away from the table, I was blackballed from the table. I was blackballed from the media because they felt like I was a threat from walking away from it. But they didn't understand it's a whole world of black people we're not talking about. We can't have a social media movement with our smartphones and our brothers and sisters in the Congo losing their hands and can't make $1 a day for the Colton, right?
Right.
And so the redress was just, look, Mike Brown, father, right? I can't speak on the mother. I know the mother get money. Hillary Clinton kicked them down. They talk about the mothers in the movement, not the fathers. So I'm addressing this. I'm talking about the grassroots people. I'm talking about Josh, who doing 8 years for setting a piece of plastic on fire. Still locked up to this day. I'm talking about Darren Seal's mother, who been through everything since she lost her son. That's the person who take her to dialysis and pick her up after he worked 12-hour shifts. I'm talking about Melissa McKinney's son, found hung in the backyard after we did one of the largest protests in St. Louis history. There wasn't no cameras there, but we did the work. And so it's a litany of people who need this support, but also a litany of people around the world who say, look, Tory, you, as this person that we believe in, must address them. And I did what I was supposed to do. I asked for the money, and we had a conversation, and they said vehemently no. And I haven't gotten anything. Mike Brown Sr. hasn't gotten anything, and a lot of families haven't gotten anything, and a lot of activists haven't. So, we just continue to battle on the political side, not personal.
Now, you mentioned Mike Brown's mom. Since your video with Mike Brown Sr. from last year, and since the videos that you and I made, this audit from the IRS came out. Right. And in the audit, it says that I think 1.5 million went to Mike Brown's mom from Black Lives Matter. In their fiscal year of last year, they spent 26 million of 70% of their expenses spent 26 million of it on grants to organizations and families. They were able to prove that they gave the IRS, not Black Lives Matter, but the IRS, they gave money to a bunch of chapters, 12 or 15 chapters across the country. And for people who don't know, the Black Lives Matter chapters that they gave money to are people who sprang up locally who were inspired by the work.
Right.
Trayvon Martin's family got money. Yeah. So there's money left over.
There's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money left over. I feel like us as a community, people who care about Black Lives Matter, people who are invested in it, have a right to ask them what's going to happen with the rest of that money. But has your feeling on whatever you feel like Patrice and them did wrong or right changed since that IRS audit came out?
No, it actually got worse.
Explain how.
And so once you look at the IRS and you look at the paperwork, it's actually worse than what I would think. Everybody know Patrice. Patrice is an artsy person. She one of those people, and so she strives to, not to be in the African American History Museum, but to be in Hollywood and get a star. And so we understand that she has that kind of celebrity, aspiration. Why is she left with the bag all by herself? Why is the person that she has left the bag now, Shalom Bowers, who people just act like he doesn't have a name, who's the new executive director, who was the treasurer for the last organization, who paid her $20,000 a month. Now he's the new ED. He also awarded himself $2.1 million in that same report. She gave her baby daddy almost $900,000. Right. Which is, almost.
And he has a Trap Hills organization.
Yeah, he go around, I guess, another rapper, don't live it, got it on a shirt, painting murals. Now, I don't know if you need $900 or $1 million to do that. I don't know if the other people need $800. I don't know if her brother needs $800,000 to do security. I don't know why you paying your mama, cousin, sister, and auntie to cook for you. I don't know why you need a $6 million house in LA, $3 million house in Georgia, a $4 million house in Canada, a $4 million house in London, a $5 million house in Paris. These are questions that we have to have answers to. And so when you look through it, yeah, we could look at, you gave what they said, Black Lives Matter chapter in Boulder, Colorado. But they said officially they didn't have any local branches or chapters. So who are these magical people? This is what I mean. It's like, to me, we confused on what the movement is. And for me now, once we saw the taxes, is the movement don't look like a movement, it look like a Ponzi scheme.
Back to that 100,000 we had.
Yeah.
That was daunting for me.
Right.
With a coalition. So now we're talking about a situation where Patrice is by herself. It's 90 million. I have not gone through the budget or gone through the money with a fine-tooth comb to be like, to know every single spend. Like, you know way more about it than I do. Me knowing the little bit I know about it, there's spends on there. Like, when I saw the security spend, that spend made sense to me. Especially when you can't trust these. A lot of these security firms are police. I know personally, I'd rather have my own brother securing me. You know what I'm saying? So that spend intellectually and emotionally made sense to me. Right. The house, some of the that didn't make sense to me, right? Now, again, we're talking about strategy though, right? It didn't make sense to me, but also I've never been in a position, and some of the spends with like some of the huge spends of consultants and certain things like that, I've never been in a position to have that amount of money to know what to do with it. And I think we both can agree that Patrice and the other women who started Black Lives Matter have long histories of on the ground activism, being in the community, doing the work.
I would vehemently disagree.
You would disagree with that?
I would.
Okay,
ask,
break it down.
Again, if somebody won $1,000, if you could show me 10 protests in 2020.
No, but you're talking about. See, I think we can still agree. I'm not talking about 2020 because I agree with you.
I'm saying in life. If you could show me Patrice Cullors doing some activism stuff, or Alicia Garza or Opal, right? Doing the activism that got them the bag.
No, but let's be clear here, right? Because you and me had a conversation off camera, right? So I'm talking about who this woman is in LA, and Opal and Alicia were gone by the time that money came in, right? So it was just Patrice, really. So we're really talking about Patrice, right?
Yes, but I think to me, it's like we setting up what I think would really happen, which is, to me, is this will make Bernie Madoff happy. It's an elaborate Ponzi scheme. So we believe that Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is somehow different from the Black Lives Matter PAC or the Black Lives Matter movement or the Movement for Black Lives or the Electoral Justice Project or the Black Futures Lab or Black Policy Institute or Blackbird. I'm naming these things, one, so when you look at it, you can Google it, but then you will see the same people and names reoccurring.
Right. I agree with you, but the point I'm making here is that if you were to say, you and me spoke about you being in Louisville with Tamika and my son and all, and Linda and all them, right? And the money, this 90 million, the chunk of it, the vast majority of it, did not come in because of Mike Brown or because of Trayvon Martin. It came in because of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor.
For sure.
Right?
And what I would say is, when you saw 100 cities go up across the country, that had nothing to do with Alicia Garza,
I agree.
Opal, or Patrice.
I agree.
So when they get the bag for the benefit of people going out, you get the bag to either get it out. My first fundamental argument is that they should have never been in the line to get the bag because it wasn't their bag in the first place.
I hear
They're
that.
not doing the organizing work.
No, I hear that, but what the point I was trying to make was the work that they did prior to 2020. I'm talking about 2015, 2012, 2011, back to what Patrice was in LA. That work still stands. It's still real.
And what I'm saying is, she had a job. She made $20,000 a month. Alicia Garza worked for the domestic organization. Yeah, Opal had her job by doing the Black immigrants. She had her nonprofit. So it would be naive of me to say that a Black person, period, who has worked in nonprofit for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, get $90 million and don't know what to do with it. Don't know that you telling your membership, because we also are missing the part where 10 Black Lives Matter chapters actually quit in the summer of 2020 because they weren't receiving resources and never received resources.
Yeah, from my perspective, Black Lives Matter was largely inactive in 2020.
So if they were largely inactive, when did they start being active and on what key? So 24. So let's just play the math out like we just played it out. And then, because I know Jasmine got something to say. 2012, 2013, that's the Dream Defenders. That's Phil Agnew. That's Michael Sampson. That's Tiffany Dina Lofton. They ain't got nothing to do with you. 2014, that's Tory, Tef. That's D. Seals. That's Alexis. That's Brittany, right? 2015, that's Baltimore. That's not BLM. We talking about Baton Rouge 2016, Milwaukee 27. Like we going through years of work and it ain't BLM. And so as we are building and trying to be in community with you, all right, Phil, what you doing down there in Florida? All right, what y'all doing in Chicago? We building, they planning. So when the windfall comes in 2020, they just got the pot out. They have had that. So I went to Google and asked Google for the money. They said they already gave it to BLM. But they don't do tech work. We gave out tech. We teach people how to code. They don't do that. We do the breakfast. Well, we already went to the food people to do this. What I'm saying is, one, it was fundamentally a lie. And I feel like that's the problem. Like, we could justify how you spent the money, but was you even supposed to get the money in the first place?
Oh, yes.
And I think that's the difference. Patrice not organizing that. When I went to Minneapolis and Louisville, they said, oh, yeah, Tory, we doing this because y'all taught us this. We mobilizing in this way, and we did this because of what y'all did. Oh, we went to the training y'all did in 2016. It's not like we having a conversation, but I thought, but we forget lies on the pathways because Black Lives Matter started about what? 3 queer black women. Now it's not 3 queer black women.
Okay.
Or two queer black women.
2 now, right?
Right.
So this is my point.
Right, right. That's what the story was.
When your foundation starts lying and breaking up, then the people start looking at you funny. And you can't be amongst the people. And that's the difference. Like, you have to justify why you in the spot in the first place. And like I told Patrice, after we had the video and came out, I told Patrice, I'm still Tory. My number don't change. If you would have called me last year, last month, last week, last night, last hour before we got on the call, we could have talked about it, and I would have picked up the phone and said, Patrice, one, I think they playing you, leaving you over there with the bag. You're the only executive director. You're the only person on the board, which I've never seen nowhere else. That's what they told me and you, that we can't have a board like that.
Right.
But they get all the breaks. And so for me, I'm like, yo, I would just say, look, call me. All right, cool. You messed up. I understand. Yo, go get the Henny. Fly us out to L.A. Go get Phil. Go get Tiffany. Go get Tamika. We're going to fly out and we're going to create a plan for everybody around the country. Because there's no one person or 2 or 5 people that can figure this out. We need to go get all the best and brightest black people. Now we have the resources that the Black Panther Party, that our elders dreamed of having. We could do all of that and some experimental stuff. They chose to hoard it, choose nepotism, firing your baby daddy, your brother, sister, auntie, and they lied about the house. It was different if you say, look, I bought a house. The movement need that for content creation. But they first said it was for a safe house. So why are you sitting in front of the New York Times with a charcuterie board drinking champagne if it's a hidden house that's not for the people and for public consumption? Why are you renting it out at $350 for a birthday party? I can't go get a $78,000 charter flight on the strength of who I am, and nobody should be. Nor should I be paying myself $20,000 a month, because no one in the movement is doing $20,000 worth of work. Because when you go to the black communities from here to the Congo to Australia, black people are suffering like it's 1965. We just got a smartphone and we can tweet about it now.
Heard.
One thing I wanted to say is that I get everything you're saying. I understand, but I'm not in your shoes, so I see it differently a little bit. But I feel like regardless, even with what you're saying and agreeing that them starting Black Lives Matter, still they deserve some kind of accolades, because even though you guys have been doing the groundwork and pushing Black Lives Matter up, the masses did start doing things because of BLM. And then also, we were talking about upstairs, the difference in between being an independent activist versus being an activist signed, right?
You're talking about like you're making a metaphor between
I'm making a metaphor, sorry, between rappers and activists. So you have a rapper, you have an independent rapper, and they're doing all the same things, but the person that is mainstream, they're, the ones that are being pushed up and being celebrated, but the rapper down here is doing the same thing. And it's kind of like that in the activism work or whatever. But I do also feel like you kind of choose, because you chose, okay, I'm going to stay underground. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to do this, that. Patrice, you already said, wants to be known. So if she's still doing the work while being known, is that such a horrible thing?
I think everyone wants to be known for their good deeds for the community. I'm not saying I don't want to be able to go into my community and be like, that's the good brother who do work. But the first Black Lives Matter quote unquote movement meeting was held in St. Louis, Missouri, 12 minutes from Ferguson, Missouri. Every meeting, every subsequent meeting, I was in it for 2 years straight. So it's not like, I could be Talib, but, what Jay-Z said, lyrically, I would probably be Talib Kweli. So you could say you want the fame and the glitz and the money, but you really want to do what this person is doing. But it's not like we didn't build it together. It'll be like we could put this, and we're going to use the rap metaphor. We all different artists. We're going to put a festival together. We all going to put our sound check. We got, some people hotter than others, and okay, I got you. But we all came together and put this festival together. Why are you the only person that got paid for it?
Okay.
Why you want to be paid every time you see Black Lives Matter on the screen? And then how does that, even outside of that, when I go to the communities, like I go to LA, from where you quote unquote from, they don't see you, they don't know you. If I pull up in Chicago, they don't know these people. They're not in the community with me. You go to I'm in the slums, I'm with my people, figuring it out.
Yeah, I can see the frustration. It's like corn pops and puff corn. And people are going to buy the corn pops because they know about it when the puff corn is really put...
I'm sorry. That was pretty good. I didn't know where that was going when you said corn pops.
Just ride with me, Talib.
No, I'm riding with you.
Me.
But all I'm saying is the recipe for pops is corn pops.
Right.
So who trained Patrice about is you looking at?
Right.
Mm-hmm. The person who got your rhetoric together was somebody in Ferguson who taught you how to no justice, who shut shit. That's us.
Right.
So you taking it, right? You commodifying, you commercializing it. Mm. You package it to Amazon. Amazon don't know they buying a knockoff.
Right.
Big Mama don't know. The sister who just graduated from college don't know when she sent her $50 in. She said, I'm so tired of this. I'm going to send $20 every time I get paid because I believe in it. When they look up and see $20, $30 million on housing, $30 million on stock, you investing in the same corporations that are enslaving our brothers and sisters in the Congo, in Kenya, in Haiti, the same people. You investing in the same companies that has the prison labor.
Let's talk about that for a second, because there's a guy who works here, one of our producers, Steve Bermucci. He's a
why are you laughing?
Steve is very much anti-stocks. He's anti-Wall Street. He's anti, and for good reason. I get why he is.
I get you.
But there's people in our community who are very pro. That's the people who are trying to talk about wealth building, and people who, I don't consider myself a capitalist, but I feel like I'm an unwilling, sort of by default participant in the capitalist system.
Sure.
Right? I don't try to push capitalism, but just by the nature of me living in America and spending money, and that's just what it is. What is your stance on whether or not Black people at all should be involved in stocks for wealth building for Black communities? Because I agree with you that once you're investing in the same systems that are oppressing us, but some people, capitalists in our communities,
right,
who are still pro-Black, because I feel like there are still pro-Black capitalists, would argue that no, we need to use this tool to build wealth.
Well, I think so. First and foremost, I think it depends on how you identify, right? And so, like BLM, they would say they are trained Marxists. That's leftist, socialist, very lefty talk. That means you believe in communal economics, group economics.
Yep.
That does not mean that you believe in capitalism, which is an inherently exploitive system. You can't have capitalism without stolen people, stolen land, and stolen wages. So if you invest in that system, you can't be a trained Marxist unless you're trained by the CIA.
Right.
So you can't have an economic system to liberate people while you feed millions, tens of millions of dollars into it. It's the same way that we do it in our community. right? I don't have to exploit nobody to sell chicken plates out my house.
Nope.
To do the little, I put the little charms on the Crocs, right? I do her. I cut her. Like, that's non-exploitive economics, right? And when you can figure out how to get the hardware or to mass produce it, right? And I'm getting a little, lefty talk, right? When you control the means of production, do you share the profits? So, are you saying, because I made the chicken plate, I ain't got to pay the delivery person no more, even though the delivery person is now not doing 10 a week, they're doing 100 a week. They're going to 100 houses. Do you have more compensation for that, or are you sharing that? If you're a trained Marxist, if you're a leftist, communist, or Afro-communal person, you trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
You trying to go if you get that kind of bag, you're not even trying to mass produce or go get them shirts. You would just buy them from the continent and free people from the cotton plantation in Burkina Faso. But when you don't have that politic, you say things like, you're trying to decolonize philanthropy. Philanthropy is stolen, exploited wealth, hoarded, changing the tax codes by the Rockefellers in the 30s and 40s. You're talking about something vastly different when we're talking about group economics. There is some kind of conflation on, if I try to make a business, is that black capitalism? It is not if you do it in a group communal way. And I think that's where me and somebody like Dr. Jared Ball will have a disagreement on what black capitalism and what black group economics is and could be, and how we can use black group economics to build political power so we ain't got to kiss the Democrats or the Republicans or try to be the next Candace Owens or somebody trying to kiss somebody butt for the party, when no party can be funded by the people, but Black Lives Matter got enough money to fund it all, or have our own agenda. So where we see it on the ballot, be it Marcel, who ran in South Carolina, or Karen Bass ran in LA, we could fund the people who we identify with and be, like you said, pragmatic in approach politically, but build power amongst it. I think that's the difference, how we talking about it. Because if you understand the Black Panthers, they would say that there's no big difference between this.
Yeah.
War is what? Politics with bloodshed. Politics ain't nothing but war with bloodshed. If you concentrate your economics in either, you have group economics towards one goal and one agenda.
Word.
Can you lay out why we don't need mainstream acceptance from white media and white funders in order to do activist work?
I think the biggest problem when you're looking at funders or white media is you don't bring your people along. And so we had this struggle with the IBFA. I could talk that talk. I done went to, I got a $250,000 out of Jay-Z back in 2015. Got the Black Lives Matter grant. Can I go talk it? For sure. But that don't mean that the people in my community know it's even a movement. And so when you go through the black community, it don't seem like it's a Black Lives Matter movement, a black freedom struggle. So we need to get back to where we know we most powerful from. And that's Black Panthers going door to door. Somebody see you feeding the kids or taking the people somewhere or taking the people to the jail or helping the medicine and elders, and they're pitching $5 or $10. And so we as an organization have membership dues and go into the community and raise our money. Because we believe that is the most powerful way. Because no matter if you like them or hate them or a philanthropy group, if Jay-Z give you $20 million, please believe that Jay-Z is going to want to see something out of it.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, for sure. But if it's 20 million people giving you $5 or $2 a month,
it's different.
If Jay-Z give me a meal or not, bro, the people going to be fed. Now I've highlighted the contradiction. Because if one person with hoarded mass has more influence than the mass, I can't have that. And so that's where we got to get to. We know what worked, Black Panther Party. We know what worked, Marcus Garvey. We know these people power movement work for black people. That might work for environmental, that might work for Greenpeace.
There you go.
That ain't going to work for the Black Liberation Movement. Because the masses got to not only see that there is a finish line, but be invested in moving there. So it ain't just one person getting free or a few. What Thomas Sankara say. We have a fundamental decision to make. Champagne for a few or healthy drinking water for the many. And we choose the many every time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, you are now working with other organizations, and you came here from Albany, New York, and tell me about your work in the activist space in the Hudson Valley.
Well, I'm just up there going to Albany, Schenectady, all kinds of people, all on the East Coast, just trying to move these things. Our first big piece is the Black entrepreneur market. And so we want to set up Black people down there in Kingston and Poughkeepsie and Hudson and all these places to work together. But we want to do cultural events to bring our people together.
Yes,
and so this Black entrepreneur market is something that we want to grow from, because there's a lot of rich white people up there in the Hudson Valley, right? You might walk down one of them streets and see George Clooney or Martha Stewart one day, right? How do we have the economic base for Black people to grow, and from vendors to festivals to a Black business district? And can we duplicate that in places like Birmingham, places like Natchez and Jackson, Mississippi, St. Louis? Those are the things that we really fundamentally working on. And so my job really over the last 2 years has been going around the country, identifying myself and other groups like up in upstate, and the Lexus and Samiras and all of these people that we don't know their name, but they're doing amazing work. How do we bring those people together and organize in a powerful way? So that's kind of my big thing up there.
Yes, indeed. Well, you are loved and appreciated by us on this show. Thank you for sitting with us. Thank you for coming to Los Angeles and spending your time with us and blessing us with your words and your thoughts. The People's Party is proud to have Tory Russell. Thank you so much.